Welcome to the Chess Channel, the channel where you can learn loads.
It doesn't matter who you are. If you have a bad day, you have a bad day. There are no exceptions to this. Every single chess player can have a very good day as much as a bad one. We would like to come to an event we barely touched upon. Which one is it? It's the Speed Chess Championship of 2024. Amongst the very best players, there are few, who are not ranked that high, who somehow manage to get not just their foot in the door, but every time that is about to close, you will find that foot that is wedged between the door, preventing it from shutting. Adding to this, the Chessable Masters is actually dominated by two players in particular you hardly even know. One is Lazavik and two is Martinez. These two players have really surprised everyone, and probably including themselves. One super grandmaster who had problems even getting close to young Lazavik, Denis Lazavik, was the one and only Wesley So. It's like he was cursed. Not only Lazavik was in top shape, but he was the one who was showing Wesley all the corners of the board. Let's say Wesley So had a really bad day and a really bad all-round experience. For anyone who followed or is following these games, would actually know what we are talking about. Let's take one game, and we can move on and take it on from there. Not today, but in the near future. One person Wesley So could not get out of the way, is the Belarusian Grandmaster. For anyone who is not that familiar with Denis, he was born in Minsk, and his rating in recent times has shot over the roof. Let's see what magic, if any, Denis Lazavik carries with him. Denis, as we know, is up against the one and only Wesley So, and because this is a blitz encounter, you can expect the unexpected. There is certain theory to many openings, and of course some players may want to follow it, unless the opposition opts for that move to get you off. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Mikhail Tal was a specialist and a very unpredictable chess magician. If you want to see one of these games, you may want to follow this link that is just coming up as we speak. In the meantime, by no means we can compare Denis to Tal. Tal was a completely different type of player, but was Tal himself we are talking about. Lazavik this side, started up with 1. e4. I beg your pardon, we got this wrong from the word go. Denis started up with 1. d4 not e4. Wesley answered with a kingside knight move. c4 followed. And with this push to e6, Lazavik too, gets his kingside knight to come into the game by placing him on f3. With d5 on the board, this is how Lazavik continues, and what Wesley chooses to do, is to go for a Nimzo approach to the game. Lazavik without delay, followed theory. He got in the pin, the bishop is now pursued, and with Wesley having the option to choose what he wants to do, you can either back off this bishop or trade him to the knight. Lazavik went for the latter, though you do not need to capture the bishop right away, because Wesley can take this knight off on c3 first with a check. He nevertheless takes the bishop on f6, queen b3 here looks appropriate, but Lazavik himself opts for this avenue of play. Does anyone who is a fanatic know what opening we just experienced? It's the Nimzo Indian Ragozin variation, a variation that is played in millions of games. Both Lazavik and Wesley So have followed theory to the letter, and what we are trying to say by this, is that you can hardly go wrong. Wesley So can choose to develop his queenside. Though there is nothing stopping him from doing this, he first got his king to safety, and how Lazavik moves forwards, is via this rook repositioning. There is a specific reason for this move, and we do not need to illustrate. In fact, this rook move will come in handy in a few moments. We always know the situation with these types of structures and how these pawns on c4 and d5 behave. Though there is no right or wrong way, you can capture on d5 or you can capture on c4. It happens all the time in a queen gambit declined or accepted type of game. At some stage, these pawns will go. With this in mind, Wesley simply decided to take on c4, this pawn is immediately captured, and is all about the continuation and what you choose to play given the reaction of your opponent. Wesley came up with the best possible solution to this situation. He advanced this pawn to the 5th in an attempt to try and open up the d-file. Should this pawn come off, Lazavik can capture with the bishop, but the only worry at this stage is to look out for a possible fork with the knight. Does this work and why? If only it was that simple. The problem you have this potential knight fork is here with this bishop check. All you do is to get the knight to return, and this is just to be able to block a very nasty type of check. We hope by now, you can see the importance and value of the rook posted on c1. He stops catastrophe from unfolding on this c-file. Coming back to the game, queen b3 solves many problems but Lazavik bypasses it. Mind you, we need to remember, this encounter is a blitz one and you are bound to either miss many opportunities or see them and just ignore them. Lazavik's reaction to this push to c5 by Wesley So was to simply capture the pawn, and yet we know he did not get rid of the pawn, or not just yet. He opted for development by getting his knight to come into this outpost on d7. It's a very clever resource given this pawn on c5 cannot be saved. Never ever so using this logic, Wesley So just ignores him for the time being. He knows the pawn can be removed when necessary. If you want to force the bishop to react, all you need is to attack him. Should you do, Wesley would have a choice between taking the knight with a check or alternatively getting rid of the pawn from c5. We are never going to find out because, as we know, there was a deviation here. With the bishop not being attacked, or not being attacked just yet, Lazavik came up with a really questionable response. He pushed this pawn right into c6, but what was the intention? With Wesley obviously arresting the pawn, Lazavik castles, and Wesley So uses this gap on the b-file to activate his rook. Wesley loves this positions and he must have loved in how his pieces were allocated and dispersed across the chessboard. This is not the first game these two are playing, and Wesley, even though he is a more experienced player, he is really struggling to get past this young grandmaster. Why was rook b8 an important move? Well, think of this. The rook on b8 can do far more than if he was in the corner of the chessboard. Also, you need to be looking at this pawn on b2. Right now he is momentarily safe, but you may need to take precautions to keep him safe. In this light, Lazavik got this queen to find the second, and as soon as Wesley So saw this move unfold, he set up a tactic in the hope it would work. If the bishop from c4 is somewhat disturbed, rook b6 and something like bishop a6, and Lazavik would have a problem because he is most likely going to lose the rook from f1. In the meantime, there was nothing that was going to stop Wesley's plan, and having gone for it by getting the knight in with this attack, would you engage or let the knight on e5 be? Actually, you cannot leave him there. Shall we show? Let's use this hypothetical attack on the bishop. If you take, and take. If everything comes off from f3 in this way, though this is not by any means winning for any side, Wesley would at least have a tiny advantage, and if there is any person to do the job, it would be Wesley's job to do and no one else's. Coming back. And for this very reason and to avoid a double pawn structure on the third, Lazavik did the normal thing and got rid of the knight. As soon as the knight on e5 was also removed, Lazavik activates this rook, and what a better post to put him on. Wesley is a very tricky player and showed his abilities endless times in games such as this one. What he did was to get this bishop to hit the diagonal, and what he is planning next is to push or advance this pawn on c6 to c5. Though this must be surely on the cards, Lazavik gave Wesley to think about another move. So what did Lazavik do here? He simply launched after the bishop. In chess, there has always been this philosophy that bishops are more valuable than knights. Well, take that with a pinch of salt. If bishops were worth more, why is a bishop 3 points and why is a knight 3 points? What many people say is a myth. In certain situations, bishops are better, and in others, the knights can be. If you watch the top chess engine championship, and it doesn't matter what season you watched, modern engines are restructuring the rules of the game. Often, engines never bother to castle, they very frequently hand over central pawns just as easy when they calculate they can get a better position, and in so many situations we had also seen what appear to be the most ridiculous engine moves. No human is actually capable of working out their real depth. Coming back to the game, Wesley had to make a decision. That decision was to trade in the bishop to the knight or get this bishop on b4 to reach safety. Wesley in the end, chose to retain his bishop, but where did this bishop go? This is where Wesley decided to back him off to, and this very response gave rise to how Lazavik reacted. This is what he did. It's not a spectacular move because the only threatened piece, the bishop on e7 can easily seek cover. It is important to note, depending on how you sort out the problem with your bishop on e7, this game can take an unexpected turn. If you place him on the 8th, if you lash out onto the queen in this way, should you place the queen here, after rook d1, and bishop c7, a move like b4 is not likely to work. Not only the pawn is going to come rolling off, but the knight is up next. So, if you take the bishop, and now drop the knight, does this look like a drawn position? It may, but we are never going to find out. Therefore, coming back to the game, Wesley chose the only move that led to his demise. Which move was it, and why was it considered to be a full-blown blunder? This was the move he went for. So how does a player like Lazavik try to take advantage? He actually didn't, but we are going to use a term that has no place in chess. He got in a way lucky, because after having gone for this rook repositioning, the moment of truth came. Do you want to guess what Wesley did, or do you wish to be lazy and just sit back and keep your brain numb? From all the moves he had, Wesley didn't know how fast south he was going. This was that move he committed to, and a worse move like this you don't get to see. So why was this pawn push so bad? It's because of this renewed attack on the queen. Though the queen is as good as trapped, the only two escape pods she has is c5 and f5. Wesley knew if you place your queen here on f5, as soon as Lazavik launches this brand new attack on the queen, it does not mean the queen is going to drop for nothing, but can you see why not? It's because of this attack on the queen using the bishop. But it doesn't really matter. The queen is not going to drop, but this bishop is, and once he goes, Wesley's position collapses entirely and he can kiss this game goodbye. Therefore, coming back to the game, Wesley opted for this queen response to c5 in the hope Lazavik was going to miss his big chance. He doesn't. Denis applied this fork, and as soon as the queen made her way back and into f5, this brand new fork appeared and Wesley fell for a trap he normally sets up himself. This of course was good enough a move to force Wesley to resign an otherwise drawn game, but this is the nature of the game. Wesley's biggest nightmare in this tournament was and has been Denis Lazavik from start to end. Not just in this game, but Wesley had trouble keeping up with him. Okay, can we say Wesley had a bad day? For sure we can say that, but all the credit needs to go to Denis, who time and time again found the moves that mattered, and as soon as he took advantage of them, it was good enough a reason for Wesley to resign on multiple occasions. And this was our special today. Denis, as a result of his achievements in Blitz tournaments, is gaining more and more followers, and only time will tell how strong a player he is going to become. In the meantime, we sincerely hope you have enjoyed today's game and look forward to seeing you again shortly. God bless.